Massive new survival game sells 200,000 copies in just 5 days. Destiny 2. The final shape has had a rough start with some disgruntled reviews, but things are already beginning to even out. Just Cause developer Avalanche, shuttering 2 studios and laying off 50 workers, and much more. Soulmask is lighting up the Steam charts with an impressively huge number of players picking up the colossal multiplayer survival RPG. You might be forgiven for wondering if the gaming world really needs more survival games. After all, it has become a staple genre, especially on PC. Heavy hitters like Rust, Ark, Valheim, and Sons of the Forest have led the pack so successfully, you might think there's no room for anyone else. Thankfully, it appears that's not the case with recent newcomer Soulmask hitting a stunning number of copies sold in an incredibly short amount of time. What's probably driving those sales, at least in part, is the sheer ambition of Soulmask. Not only offering a staggering amount of gameplay, even in this early access version, there's also plenty of neat twists on the survival game formula to make this a fresh proposition. The standout feature, of course, is the titular mask system, where you can hop bodies into NPCs to steal their abilities and skills, letting you choose how you play. Along with the game's commitment to offering an authentically hard survival experience, you can begin to see why Soulmask has managed to hit the sales numbers it has. With over 200,000 copies sold since launch, which was only 5 days ago, it's definitely making bank at a time when many games are struggling to have an impact. What's also helping the game's community have a positive atmosphere is the developers' approach to both getting hotfixes out and answering player questions. Today, a big series of fixes has been released, with the game seeing improvements in nearly every aspect. These range from making the UI feel more responsive and intuitive to smoothing out the game's combat and helping tribespeople work a little more logically. The developer has also taken to Steam to do a brief Q&A. The majority of the answers relate to issues either currently being worked on or suggestions that may be implemented in the future, but it does also offer an indication of the game's future direction. Destiny 2. The final shape was feeling the wrath of some pretty disgruntled players on Steam, as people flooded the reviews with negative comments after many experienced server issues yesterday during the DLC's launch. At its worst, it dropped to 36%, mostly negative on Steam, as most players were frustrated at the server issues and delays to their experience. They claim Bungie should have been more prepared for the DLC drop. Can we stop giving big companies a break when they fail to perform? One reviewer says. It's not a small indie company who you give the benefit of the doubt. It's a massive company with a lot of experience that rakes in crazy money. They should be held to account for not being able to smoothly launch an expansion. Server issues during the launch of an online game aren't unheard of. In fact, they're pretty common. While some people ask why companies can't just overestimate the number of players they'll get and prepare the servers accordingly, it's important to acknowledge that if a studio spins up more servers than needed, it will end up wasting resources if the game falls short of expectations. However, this doesn't mean that leaving negative reviews is wrong, as it gives prospective players a better idea of what a game is currently like. Although we're already starting to see a change. As of writing this, the reviews jumped up to a mixed rating and will likely keep increasing, as there are fewer server issues and more players actually get to experience the final shape for themselves. Some players are pointing out all the positives with the latest DLC. Despite the horrible server issues on launch, this is legitimately a fantastic campaign and leagues better than Lightfall, a reviewer says. This is backed up by several others who agree that the final shape is top tier so far. And even though the launch was really bad, that shouldn't be an issue that looms over the DLC for its lifespan. Destiny has already apologized for all the issues on Twitter and assured fans that it is working through them to try and find a solution. From Software's Hidetaka Miyazaki has discussed the size of Elden Ring DLC Shadow of the Erdtree and the desire for players to experience the same sense of discovery as that of the base game. Previously, Miyazaki described Shadow of the Erdtree as the studio's largest expansion ever. In terms of pure surface area, you could think of something larger even than Limgrave in the base game, he said. Following the latest previews, Miyazaki has discussed the DLC's size. At the very outset, there were a lot of possibilities, but one of the things that was determined very early on was that size, he said. We wanted that sense of scale for this map, because we wanted an experience for the player that was going to match that of the base game. We wanted them to experience that sense of discovery and that sense of wonder and exploration again. We needed a map that was going to uphold that and bolster that. Miyazaki also discussed the density of the map. Previously, he told Eurogamer the team wanted to go more in depth and bring a denser, richer level design, blurring the boundary between field and dungeon. Obviously, it being exactly the same, but smaller, wouldn't quite cut it. So we wanted to approach from a sense of granularity, is the word we're using, he said. How dense this map is, and the ratio of legacy dungeon to open field areas, and how they intertwine. This is something we wanted to explore anew in the DLC. In terms of recapturing that sense of scale, but in a slightly different way with a slightly different granularity. From Software recently released a new story trailer for Shadow of the Erdtree, detailing more of Miquella's journey that players will follow over the course of the DLC. It's set for release on the 21st of June. Team Fortress 2 is approaching the age of your typical high school graduate, but its still vibrant community has a lot to say about its future. Now, the game's Steam recent reviews rating has dropped to mostly negative, following a flood of thumbs-down reviews from players who are sick of its ongoing bot issues. These negative reviews are part of a community effort called Fix TF2, which started on June 3rd. The effort site claims that the game has been nearly unplayable for the past 5 years because its official servers are overrun by cheating bots that instant headshot any player they encounter. The site then notes that Valve has done very little to fix these issues, despite the game still making a large amount of money through microtransactions, calling its lack of effort nothing short of appalling. This isn't the first time that TF2 players have called for Valve to solve these bot issues. Back in 2022, the official TF2 Twitter X account posted a message of solidarity with players. TF2 community, we hear you, it reads in part. We see how large this issue has become and are working to improve things. However, players say that little has improved in the 2 years since. First released in 2007 as part of the Orange Box, TF2 has remained one of the most played games on Steam, often ranking in the top 10 on Steam charts. We've reached out to Valve for comment, and we'll update this story if we hear back. The latest patch for Ubisoft's military FPS XDefiant is out now, addressing a number of issues, including for instances where the game would crash. There are also miscellaneous fixes and security improvements. In particular, this update fixes a problem on PS5 that allowed players to access areas they should not have been able to. Additionally, XDefiant had missing terrain textures when joining matches already in progress on some maps, and those have now been addressed. There are a variety of fixes for XDefiant's social features too, and the patch notes are humorously written. For example, the patch fixes an issue that could cause the game to crash when people spam the button to open and close party invites. Ubisoft said, "But who would even do that? Calm down!" After overcoming launch day server issues, XDefiant has reportedly reached more than 8 million players. The free-to-play game is available on PS5 and Xbox Series X Vertical Bar S, as well as PC, but not on Steam. XDefiant patch notes. While in a party, we now display the most restrictive crossplay setting among the party members, as it applies to the whole party. Also fixed an issue where party members with differing crossplay settings couldn't matchmake. Fixed an issue with displaying incorrect player names on some social screens. Fixed a crash caused by spamming open-close view party invites. But who would even do that? Calm down! On consoles, Ubisoft Connect party invites could display as if they were coming from Xbox or PlayStation Network friends. Fixed that, along with some other weird invite-related things. Miscellaneous fixed some missing terrain textures when players joined matches in progress on some maps. Input-based matchmaking setting status now updates correctly after changing it on Xbox. fixed a thing on PS5 where people could sneak into places they shouldn't via PS5 activities. Security improvements, various. Just Cause franchise developer Avalanche Studios is laying off 50 employees as it moves to shutter its New York and Montreal locations in what it calls an exceptionally difficult decision. The company announced the news in a post on its website, saying that the layoffs in these areas affect 9% of its worldwide workforce. It says the decision is necessary to ensure a stable and sustainable future for the company. Our focus is now supporting all Avalanchers through this challenging time, the studio says. We're grateful for the invaluable contributions of those leaving and remain committed to creating incredible gaming experience for our players. It's currently unclear how Avalanche will be supporting those affected. The closure of its New York and Montreal spots leaves 3 remaining office locations in Stockholm, Liverpool, and Malmö. Its Montreal location opened only about 8 months ago in October 2023, and its New York location opened in June 2022. Layoffs at Avalanche, which is also responsible for helping create games like 2015's Mad Max, Rage 2, and the upcoming Xbox-exclusive Contraband game, add to a growing list of layoffs sweeping the industry over the last year. It's estimated that more than 10,000 developers lost their jobs in 2023 alone, with gaming giants like Sony, Microsoft, Riot, and EA going on to lay off large numbers of staff in 2024 as the year rolls on.